get it. Raymond, come and lie down on your tummy just there. Yep, you've got your head turned to the correct side. That's good. Bend up your right leg so that it's as close to your armpit as it can be. Put down your foot on the floor again. Slide your right knee on the floor to your right and bring it as close to your armpit as you can get it. Beautiful. Take your right knee backwards. See how you use the different tactic to you? How are you doing that? Describe it, Raymond. How are you doing that? He's cantilevering. Yeah, so he's using the lever of his foot to make a rotary movement in his knee, which lifts his knee off the ground. Why is he doing that? Because he's got his arm back here. And he's not going to roll onto his arm. Put your left arm somewhere else. Sorry to poke. I just realized what I did. Oh, Jesus. It was easy. I didn't have to bend over. Yeah, see? You see, yeah? Yeah, he remembered from yesterday. Yeah, cool. Thank you, Raymond. That's beautiful. So we have two environments. We've got the environment that is outside of our skin, and we've got the environment in which our nervous system exists. Two environments. Not one. Not my idea. Crazy idea. I don't have, sometimes I have crazy ideas, but not my idea. This is Feldenkrais's idea. And it's not just him. You'll find it all over the shop. Two environments, body and physical, social. His body environment was such, configured such, that he's not going to roll on his arm. So he makes the selections that are open to him. Were you thinking that you didn't want to roll on your arm? Bit instinctive, okay. Yep, all right. Yes. Great. So you were actually involved consciously in some level or other. Yeah. Damn, should be more subtle. Yeah. So I think I used more or less the same phrase that I used with you yesterday, take your right knee backwards. And you can see that one phrase evokes all sorts of things. Now, if you had a group of, say, 5 or 10 people on the floor in that more or less same position, and you didn't say anything about their arm placement, and they could place their arms wherever they like, and you see that the solutions that they come up with is based on the environment that they've created. Their environment is actually selecting which solution comes out. That's a big idea. That's a really, really big idea. But there's an assumption under there that there's something to select for, that there's more than one option to select. If you only have one way of doing things, there are no options to select. Doesn't matter what the arm position is. If I have the idea that I need to isolate the parts of my body, yeah, this is the idea that's holding me. It's got me in its grip. There's an instruction. I believe I now have to isolate that movement because you've just told me that leg moves backwards. My belief impels me not to move any other parts of my environment. It impels me. And until that, you know, you go to the dentist to get plaque removed, and it can be painful, right? depending on how much plaque you have. Same thing. To get plaque removed out of our minds that hold us there and rot our lives. Yeah? Plaque rots your teeth. Plaque, mental plaque, rots your life. Rots our lives. She's smiling. She knows I'm giving a sermon. Yeah? But it does. It doesn't always rot our lives, because sometimes you can take that plaque over here and you can live in this bigger environment where that plaque, that mental plaque, fits. It's like, yeah, when I'm living like that, you can yawn away, that's fine. You can yawn. Yeah. Yeah. So everything's nice and juicy and life's fine when that mental plaque lives over here. But if this mental plaque, suddenly life changes and you find yourself over here and that mental plaque isn't working for you anymore, life sucks. Just does. So what are you and I learning to facilitate with the Feldenkrais method? The removing of plaques. We're plaque removers. You're learning to be mental hygienists. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. It sneaks up on, just like real dental plaque does. Oh yeah, I'm doing a real good job of blanking my teeth. Yes, I'm mentally, yeah, I'm right there. But you know, it's the things that lay down underneath that never get said and never get witnessed and never get acknowledged. They're the things that get us stuck. Yeah.
Where they're so used to specific directions and not,
Absolutely.
we're not encouraged in our culture to go beyond that. Like, you weren't told to do that, don't. Like,
absolutely.
you want you to be focused on this.
Yeah. Yeah. Most people have lived their life in that kind of culture. That's a mental plaque. We don't even know that it's there until what? You bump into some crazy dude that asks you to lie on the floor and lift your knee and say, oh, well, why is that so difficult for you? It'll stay difficult, one, until you develop enough range of motion in the hip joint to lift the leg off the ground. That's common thinking. That's a very common plaque. Second common plaque, until you develop enough strength to lift that leg off the ground. Second common plaque. Yeah, flexibility and strength. Really common plaques. But if you develop the kind of thinking that's inherent in creative improvisation and the Feldenkrais method, you realize, move my knee backwards. Oh, they're not saying anything what to do with the rest of myself. All right, I'll roll like yesterday. Or I'll look behind me and look, my knee will come backwards. Or I'll cantilever. Now that's creative. You hear the instruction and you think to yourself, well, how can that instruction be realized? Could someone come, boom, 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 boom. You want to sit up here? Yep, just sit. Yep, sit a bit more forward, that's good. Now, is it okay if I place your hands in a certain position? Okay, so here it is. So one hand here like this. Do not move this hand. Do not bend this elbow. Yeah, and this is a hard constraint, right? Must not be done. Yeah? Do not move this hand. Do not bend this elbow. Chest bone. Put your chest bone here. Great. You see that? You just did what many people, actually most people, have no idea to do. Yeah, yeah. Have you been doing Feldenkrais lately? No. Yeah, yeah. She let her whole chest move through her shoulder girdle. Go ahead and do that. You put your breastbone here. See that? Most people don't do that. As soon as this can, yeah, and look, and the more you do it, the less and less you get to have to bend your elbows. Can you feel how they bend a little bit? Yeah, yeah. Just do that a few times. See what you come up with. Yeah, look at that. And there'll be a moment that you don't even have to increase the pressure on your knees. Then something happens nice back here, right? Now I can feel you using your back muscles to pull the shoulder blades back. Yes? Yeah. Go ahead. Use your back muscles. Yeah, the muscles that lie between the scapula, she's contracting them. Yeah. But what would happen if you just didn't contract them? What happens if you just thought of falling through your shoulder girdle? Falling forward. There we go. Look, different, huh? Yeah. That is a functional integration lesson. She had a solution, perfect. A solution over and above what most people have, and yet there's still room for options. Yeah? Thank you. So when we get rid of the mental plaque, in other words, when we get rid of the mental assumption that is limiting us, whole new vistas appear. Now, in awareness through movement, that is exactly what we're putting in people's faces. Is that the only way you can do it? Except we don't say it like that. We create scenarios where they realize mental plaque. Mental plaque. If I keep on doing that, that's not going to work. Yeah. FI is a little different. Yeah, a little different. They don't have to do all the solving. You take an even more of a hands-on approach, so to speak. Yeah. Really specific for the person. ATM, very general. Very general. FI, very specific. Big difference. Yeah. You take on a bigger role in the process. Now, one story about assumptions. Now, you've heard me talk about this before, but I'll tell it in a different way. So for a period of about 5 or 6 years, I was on the Training and Accreditation Board, the OzTab, which accredits trainings and assistant trainers and things like that, and tries to develop policy. And for 3 of those years, I was chair. Whilst serving on the board, I received an application from one of my colleagues who I actually went through the training with. And they were a very, very successful physiotherapist. As far as I know, they had 2 really big practices, one outside of the Melbourne metro area and one in. A real dynamo. Yeah, amazing person. Actually, I think they were there with me when I did the first 5-day intensive. So we developed kind of like a friendship over the years. And there her application was on the table in front of me. Oh my God, I'm thinking, what am I going to say? Anyway, I start reading it through. And when you write an application like that, you're supposed to describe your practice and whatever. And what really surprised me was they wrote about how in their practice, when they did one-on-one sessions with people, they would, he, she, it's a she, okay, stop it, sorry. She would facilitate an ATM with them. And she did that for 2 years. Every one-on-one session with a client who came in with issues, she would do an ATM lesson with them. And she described how over the 2-year period, she hardly used any hands. And over the 2-year period, the amount of hands-on work that started to happen sort of went up. So she kind of cruised. Now, when I read that, I went, oh my God, here's this person that I thought was like so expert with her hands doing this process. And that like went, shoop, lifted the lids off my eyes, because I was under the assumption that I was a schmuck. And she was like, oh shit, here's this person doing what I'm doing. And that you know, blows off the cover. It's really important. Yeah. So that's the story. You can do that. You can use ATM as a really nice process with people, and gradually more and more hands-on. And there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. There's no judgments involved. It's how you work. Now, because of our lesson yesterday, there's something I need to say in the room. And it's related to everything that I've been saying about the ATMs. So you know, I said to you that the ATMs, I'm relating them all back to standing. Remember that? And so far we've looked at how to collect the masses so everything turns easily around a central axis. And so not only that, but you can collect the masses so that it elevates the center of gravity to a point where everything moves easily. Well, there's an assumption in there. And I mentioned it when I told you that story about the muscles holding the skeleton. Yeah. Yes, the muscles hold the skeleton. But if they hold too tight, nothing moves. And all you have is this rigid body. If they don't hold tight enough, everything moves, and you have so much unpredictability, you're in trouble. Can't do anything. So what's this balance between the two? Just enough holding to keep you upright. Just enough holding to allow, here, you can see it now. You see what the hip joints are doing? This was what you were doing. Oh, let's balance him a little better. I'm in flexion, I'm a gorilla. No, no gorillas. Yeah. You see how there's this movement in the hip joints? This is why the skeleton had to break. That movement is your movement from the ATM yesterday. Shift your weight onto the right leg. Shift your weight onto the left leg. If these hip joints were being held by the hip flexors, extensors, abductors, good luck. Yeah, that'd be like plaque, or what they call osteophytic, arthritic. Yeah, if this joint was totally arthritic and no movement in there, that foot would have to lift off the ground. Yeah, look. Can you see that? But thankfully, you and I have a false one, I'm fine. You and I have hip joints that can do that. But if you're a little bit worried about your balance, guess what's going to happen? If you're uncertain, if you have an idea of how you should do it, really, really important idea. And that's not just about the hip joints, that's about all the way through. So like your shoulder blade, you know, there's a moment we were doing, can I say? That we were talking about swimming. And you know, when you're doing Australian crawl, there's a moment that you reach out and you look for the water with your palm. You know, you feel for where the pull of the water is, because it's almost like you're trying to find the rope and then pull yourself, and then pull yourself, and then pull yourself. Well, to pull, your shoulder girdle has to somehow be stabilized relative to your rib cage. Otherwise, all you get is pull and the shoulder blade goes up. Yeah. So there's a moment that all of this has to be held really firmly together, or else you can't produce a pull. But then, when you've finished your pull, and you're here, because that arm is now about there, now you have to let go of that, because you've got to have to do this part of the stroke. And if the shoulder is now still held to the rib cage, you're going to have a hard time. So there has to be this moment of softening where everything just gets soft. And you see what happens with my hand here, just kind of dangles. And then the arm kind of gets poop, and then poof. So you see there's an oscillation between holding, loosening, collecting together for a pull, loosening for an articulation. We do that all the time. You did it yesterday in the ATM. There's a certain firmness that you need to have in order to stand on this leg, a readiness. And what's this leg have to do? Be articulated enough to swing through, ready to become the next leg. So this yin and yang, soft and hard, yielding and not yielding. That's you and I. That's every living system. So when you find that moment, so this is what all this was about, sorry. When you find that moment in your awareness through movement lesson, let's get rid of this leg. Good if you could say that with a client. Can we just get rid of this leg for a moment? Yeah. When you're doing that pushing, yeah, when you're using the power of the leg to push the pelvis, there is an articulation here. But you are producing power in this leg. You've got a conundrum on your hands. How can you produce power and leave this hip joint free? Because if it's not free, what's going to happen is pelvis is going to lift off the ground. It just is. Yeah. If it's not free and you start to do that, if you're using that tactic, you're going to have to lift a lot of weight. But if it is free, as the power is produced, there'll be relative movement between the head of your femur and the acetabulum, which will allow the pelvis to actually do that, or that. Yeah. That motion. That motion. But that requires you to find a tactic that will let that happen. If you use your hip flexors too much for the source of power, you'll hold on too much. There won't be enough relative motion between your hip joint. I'm going to try it again. Yeah. There won't be enough relative motion between your hip joint. It just won't. And then there's a moment in the lesson when you are rolled over, just a little bit like that. And then you've got to find a whole new tactic with the pelvis turned to the left and tipped diagonally upwards. So it's a really nice lesson for learning about the hip joints and how to deliver power through the legs in a way that leaves the hip joints free. What might that be good for? Because a lot. Yeah. It's it's only good for this lesson, right? It's only no. Good. Sorry, I won't be silly. Look, how many times a day do you do this? That moment when you finally deliver all of your weight to your legs, do you think that's not muscular work? Sure is, but pelvis is free, right? That's exactly what we're talking about. Getting in and out of a car. Yeah. Pelvis is free. This is a biggie. I think, was it Russell Delman? Russell Delman said the most lessons in awareness through movement are about either two things: the hip joints or breathing. Full stop. Whoa, okay. So that's one thing I wanted to just point out. The second thing that I wanted to point out, and I'm pointing this out because I did say this with your colleagues up in Sydney, so I think it's fair enough that I say it with you. When you're actually leaning on these angles here, and they're pressed up against the floor, no, you don't have a nervous system. You're not supposed to do that. Yeah. See? He just wants to. Yeah. Look what happens with the ribs. Can you see what happens at the front? How you get a rising of the ribs and then a rising of the ribs and a lowering, a rising and a lowering, and a rising and a lowering. This is actually going. Why? Because of the friction of the floor at the back. It's actually taking those angles and it's moving them like that and like that, like that and like that, like that and like that. I'll get a, could you pass me that? Sorry. Could you pass me the blue tube? And yeah, that's, no, the flexible one. Sorry, Lisa, I hate doing that. I like getting it myself usually. Oh yeah, we got two choices. A hollow tube. A hollow. Yes, it is. So if that's a rib and you're leaning on it, as you push, the floor will take that. Yeah, because there's friction right there. Push, pull, push, pull, push, pull. That's the equivalent of breathing in. That's the equivalent of breathing out. Push, pull, push, pull, push. So that when you finish that lesson, there's a very good high chance that one side of you is going to feel very, very different to the other. And that's inherent in the design of the lesson. So the finding of the freedom in the hip joint while producing power in the leg is inherent in the design of the lesson from a movement perspective. The ribs finding their freedom is inherent in the lesson. And then finally, no, that's basically the two major things. Finally, that force going, there being so much freedom in the hip, freedom in the rib cage that it finds its way all the way to your hand. Yep. And you found you can use less and less and less and less and less and less and less power. Okay. I think I'm done. What pops into your mind, if anything, from that talk?
This is maybe just a little, I hope it doesn't skirt too much off what we just explained, but it was already in my head to ask you something about arthritis.
Arthritis.
Yeah, so...
He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah. So for instance, if someone had arthritis in their hands and, you know, they're in a bit of pain and things, from awareness...
Ask this person, not me.
Yeah? Okay. Well, from like a practitioner's perspective, like, what would you prescribe particular ATMs, or would anything come into your mind immediately, or from your experience?
That's good. So you mean in relation to this lesson?
No, it doesn't have to be, but it can be, yeah,
just
sure.
generally, if people have arthritis. I don't know what to say. It's just you work with what's there. So if there's, it does depend if it's what kind of arthritis, but it sounds like you're talking about osteoarthritis, which is sort of like changes in the joints through, you know, what they call wear and tear, rather than rheumatoid arthritis, which is an active inflammatory process, which is much more, you need to be pretty careful and gentle with that. But I don't think I can say anything specific about that, because it's just whatever's there is there. So if you've got limitations in movement, it's in the joints and in the muscles and in all the other tissues, and you're looking for where can you in the whole system, where can you find movement to do something in particular. So you know, like Zoran was talking about the hip joint, if you had a lot of arthritis in that joint, then the rotation in there would be more limited, but usually you can find something by setting up the constraints, by finding ways around, you know, looking for the pathways that do work, that you're looking for where you have the least resistance, where you have the most availability always. And it doesn't matter what the cause of that is, because you don't really know. You know, somebody can bring you an X-ray report that has terrible, you know, it looks like they shouldn't be able to move because of the amount of arthritis that's there, and yet, you know, somebody else could have, you know, that doesn't necessarily match their movement or pain levels. So it's a really, really common thing to have arthritis in joints. Once you're about over 30, there's going to be some there.
So would you emphasize any particular instruction? I don't know, the only thing that came to my head was like the bell hand sort of lessons, because you were, you know, making light touch, I don't know, like
look, no, I think
exhausting.
Well, I mean, they're beautiful lessons for lots of people. I think to get caught in a diagnosis of arthritis is to limit yourself. So it depends what the person wants. So, and what they need and what they can use.
Let's just keep it simple. Let's just say like they have a bit of pain, like when they're suffering from the pain of the arthritis, you know,
in a particular place.
Yeah, let's say in their hands.
Yeah.
And you're like, all right, I want to help you.
Yep.
All right. So
that's true.
So
there's you know, there's different ways you can go with that. You can find out what it is they want to be able to do with their hands. So it might be that you want to do some really gentle, little, fine, soft work with their hands, but you also want to connect the hands into the rest of them so that they have, they can generate power through the rest of them. If that's what they're trying to do, they can feel that their hands belong to the whole system, so that if they're reaching or trying to do things, that they have a whole body to do that with, instead of just trying to do things with their hands.
Sure.
So I think both of those things are useful to work really locally with the fine, soft movements, but also to get that to connect more fully into the rest of them.
Sure. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
Now, listening to Lisa, the part, of course, I only write down on the board the part that I like, right? This is always the case. We only hear that which we want to hear. That which we prepared to hear, that's what we hear. So my belief system about the Feldenkrais method is this one. It's about doing what you want in your life. And anything that I can do to assist you to do what it is that you want in your life is what I'll do. If you're a dancer, I'll do things with you. If you're an actor, you'll do things with you. If you have pain, I still look at you in that light. It's no different. It's just that Zoran Kovic has had enough of living with people in pain, so he doesn't want to do that. But this is it. We don't work with pain. Do you understand that? Roll backwards. No, we don't. We work with the way people enact their lives. I need to relate to you in such a way that you share with me something. It looks like you're wanting to say something. I create a relation with you in such a way that you share with me something that's important to yourself in your life, and that becomes our project.
And I think that's the critical thing. It's our project, not me, the practitioner, figuring out what I can do to help you. So I want to know, when do your hands hurt most? You know, is it first thing in the morning when you wake up? And are they better later in the day after you've done a few things? Isn't that interesting how movement has helped them to feel a little bit better? Do they hurt more after you've been doing particular activities? Can you explore ways to change your relationship with the activity so that it really is a joint
No, that's
project?
Raymond lying on the floor and the relationship
to push the fun too far.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted. Please continue.
It's all right.
Oh, you finished? I thought there was more. Okay.
That was good.
Yeah. So it's always that. It's always that. And when I'm with a client and we kind of click, it's really nice when then they start telling you about aspects of their life they don't necessarily share, and things that are really important to them come out, and you go, well, what would happen if we took that as a project to work, to play, to examine, to analyze, to deplaque, whatever you want to call it, that. And when this now harkens back to the video I showed you last week about the model of life, if I can find the person's innermost dreams and desires for their life, that's pretty cool. And if we can move together one step closer towards the so-called unavowed dream, I've done a good job. Yeah. So
I hear.
I could also say, right at the other end of the spectrum, I don't deal with handstands. I don't deal with pirouettes. I don't deal with delivering lines. because an actor is not about delivering lines. An actor is about them forming a relationship with you that the audience believes and can suspend their judgment for a little while in order to believe. And that means the actor's craft is relating to the other actor and being heard by the audience. That's their craft. Delivering lines, movements of the jaw, yeah, that's a part of it, but that's the craft. Does that make sense? So in the same way that I say we don't deal with pain, we don't deal with movement either. However, for anything to happen in this world, from a thought, yesterday, yeah? From a thought, this is the way I think. Why am I always on my right sit bone? I don't know. Can you tell me why why do I get this pain in my back all the time? I just don't know. You know, I think about it a lot, and the more I think about it, the more I get this pain in my back. What the hell is going on? The plaque. Yeah, they don't even know that this is this, without this posture, without this way of configuring themselves, they will always be on this buttock. Because that way of thinking, you can be even more subtle, yeah? That eye comes forward. That side of the face comes forward. My head tilts a little bit up and to the left. What's up there, Jenny, usually in the thinking model? Yeah, recollections, yes. Drawing on things. It's like, yeah. Yep, that'd be me. Yeah? And suddenly I go, why is this so tender in here? Can't lift that leg off the ground. Can't. I'm relying on it. This one, why do you think this hip joint got fucked? No, but really. But that's a very highly laden emotional word, and I intentionally used it. Why do you think it got fucked? Because not only did I land on it so much, but even in my mental life, I'm on that bloody hip joint. And no one removed the mental plaque soon enough to make me realize that I'm on that hip joint all the bloody time. So I love my mental life, and I certainly love dancing, yeah? I certainly loved pirouetting on this leg and landing on this leg. I wanted to do that. Could I have done it differently? Absolutely. Still can. Yeah. So when you go through today's ATM with each other, I would like to propose a metaphor for you. You've got an itinerary here. You know when you go on a holiday, sometimes you book an itinerary. Sometimes it's a bus tour, you know, and you go on a bus tour and they take you to places. Well, you can think of this as an itinerary. And this is kind of like mapping out your journey. Now, there'll be places along that journey. Maybe you want to linger a little longer. Maybe you just haven't had enough time to see the sights. Maybe at that point in the journey, you just want to get off the bus and say, I'm going to blow that $500 because I love this place so much. I just want to stay here for a little longer and investigate. So if you go through this process in that kind of sense, with that kind of holiday thinking in mind, that will be the best use of this script. I've kind of semi-taken you on the holiday yesterday through your ATM lesson. You can certainly draw on that experience. Matter of fact, this is why a lot of people take the bus tour in the first place, don't they? So they go, oh yeah, I really want to go back there. That was really interesting. Yeah. So use it that way. The project is you start off in ATM mode, vocally guiding your student through the lesson. And when moments arise that you think, either you think or your student thinks, a little bit of tactile informing. I like that word, informing. You form them, yes? You inform them. Do it. And when it's no longer needed, continue on with the other kind of informing. Is that clear? Any questions about that? So, are you okay to go straight into that? All right. So let's say 50 minutes, then stop, have a break, and then swap roles. Okay, so you have 50 minutes to go on a holiday. All right. Thank you very much. I said the F word. I said the F word. I've graduated.